Hi, welcome back to Engine Shop Joe. Tonight I'm going to make you do some thinking on your own. You've been watching a lot of my videos on after treatment and regenning and faults. So you'll see the answer to this in tonight's video, but I'm going to start out sharing with you what happened, what we did, and then you decide what you think should happen, and I'll tell you what the resolution was, and it turned out to be right because we didn't have any more problems. So here we go, and tonight is a little homework and a little test. Here you go. So these were the faults. This was a customer's unit, and we had never seen it before. We get out there, and then this is what we see. So we've got 32639 faults, after treatment diesel particulate filter, above normal least severe, but then we've got 1921, moderately severe differential pressure, and then active is 1922, and that's most severe. Down underneath we see we had two 3616s, VGT nozzle not responding, 101898 VGT actuator out of calibration, and a 2449 VGT out of calibration. So something you might need to know is 2449, that's the reference point of the VGT lever not being reported from the VGT to the ECM at Keon. 1898 is span, or when the VGT roll stop to stop travel, that check failed 5 minutes after the engine was running. Now, should the DPF be replaced due to the 1922? It would have to be removed and replaced, or at least cleaned. What do you think? Now, we got out there, hooked up to it, saw this, and they did a reset to clear the 1922, and then they tried to put it in a stationary regen because the customer was trying to do a heavy pick and he couldn't do it. The engine wouldn't do it. So we tried an emergency fix for him. And when we did the maintenance reset, that drives 1922 inactive. In essence, you're telling the ECM that, hey, I got the DPF cleaned or changed. We didn't do that. And we cleared that fault because you can't put it in a stationary regen if that's active. We just wanted to get the filter cleaned up enough so they could finish the lift, get the piece in place, and then get the machine out of the way. So we tried to put it into a stationary regen, and Insight would not put it into a stationary regen after fault code 1922 is active, and all the other faults were active. The only fault that was active was 1921, and that's soot loads too heavy. Okay, I'm going to leave this up for a minute, and I'm going to stop talking. Yes, I can actually stop talking. And I want you to read through all these questions and think about the answers, and then I want you to continue on with the video. I would say pause the video right here, and then take your time and think about it. Here's a little bit more information. This is the very first time we saw this machine, the very first time we ever saw this. And we had to try to decide what to tell the customer moving forward. First of all, whether we're going to be able to get it to even work. And secondly, what do we need to do to fix it? And then quote them. So here's the after treatment history. Look at it, think about it, and decide what you would do. And then we're going to go on and tell you as this progresses what we did. And I'm not I'm not implying that we were correct. I'm going to tell you what we did, and maybe we were correct. You'll have to decide that for yourself. Sometimes there's more than one way to do something, isn't there? So Take a look at this and see what you think. Okay, so as time goes on, you guys are learning, and you know I talk about timestamps, and the timestamps are the two numbers or time values on the far right. Okay, so the very farthest right is time since last occurrence, and the column before that is time since first occurrence. So now, if you look at fault code 2639 and you look at the total engine time, and then fault code 1921 and fault code 1922, you might notice there wasn't a whole lot of time that progressed between these three faults. So basically, there was about 5 hours between 2639 and 1921, and about 30 minutes between 1921 and 1922. And normally, the very minimum it should be is 8 hours between these. And this is a B67, so it probably ought to be more like 25 hours between them at the very minimum. Side note, this engine in an industrial application will usually regen about every 35 hours. I think that's on the timer. So take a look at this, think about it, and what would you do? Well, when our guy told me that he was able to get 1922 to go inactive and only 1921 was active, we should have been able to put this in a regen with Insight. Now, our ECM calibration was an older revision. It was actually revision 2. So the calibration in ECM was CC90081.02. And the current release by Cummins that we could download and put in the ECM was CC90081.10. And if you look over, that was released on the 10th of June in 2022. And under description, it resolves the issue of stationary regeneration not starting or completing. After we updated the calibration, Insight put the unit right into a stationary regen. Before that, the test was there, but you'd click start and the engine just idled. So we put the update in, did the regen. We had to start it one time because it shut down because of heat. Got the regen done. They did the pick. We went and bought a VGT motor, and we stuck the VGT motor on it. We did another regen, and then we checked it a couple weeks later, and it hadn't regened again. So the problem, the initial problem, or the root problem, was the VGT motor failed and was causing the engine to smoke, and it loaded the DPF up. Remember the after treatment history? Go back and look at that. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't every 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and the plugging numbers weren't insane. So that told us that the DPF probably wasn't loaded up with ash and metals, but it was in fact just getting sooted up, and it still had plenty of life left in it. And that's how it turned out to be. Thanks for joining me on Engine Shop Joe. See you next time.